So, so, welcome to this late night session of the podcast. We have been doing this on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. But tonight I have a guest who is in an awkward time zone that we've had to accommodate for his safety. We are concealing his identity. Did I say he? No, it's a woman actually, or it could be an it. We're not really sure actually. At any rate, we're concealing the identity of this person and trying to obfuscate as much as we can. And so we hope that you'll stick with us. Once we get started and I bring him in here, you'll see what I mean. At any rate, tonight we're going to be talking about it's pretty clear from the description that we've got someone who works in a major corporation. We cannot say which. He has legitimate concerns that if his identity was uncovered, he would be driven out. So that's a problem, right? And I have some familiarity with him. We've interacted once or twice here or there over the last year. So I guess we've known each other for about a year, maybe. At any rate, I knew that he had some stories. He's shared some of those stories, and I thought, man, that would be really good to have on the podcast. So when we get started, feel free to post your questions and comments, and just remember that we need to leave it a little bit of time to answer them. So don't wait for the last 5 minutes to post them. That would be awkward. Let me just say a couple words to cover some ground, so maybe we don't need to do so during the podcast. We can just focus on his story a little bit. Let me change the screen here a little bit. There we go. So, you get to see my big head there for a second. When depending on when you've gotten to know me, you may have known me to make strident comments, be a little antagonistic sometimes, even maybe even a little arrogant, or even maybe you perceive that I was a lot arrogant. And I don't. Well, I am arrogant. Well, I mean. But then aren't we all? But I'm the best at being arrogant. That's what I would say. It goes right along with my humility. But no, jokes aside, the reason why I'm often as strident as I am is because I take the time, to the best of my ability, to study things and research them, so that when I talk about them, I actually know what I'm talking about. And as a general rule, I don't go off on things that I don't know much about. So, for example, I have some deep skepticisms of climate change, but you're not going to be able to go onto X or Facebook or anywhere else and find a whole lot of exchanges with me going after people on it, because I've done some stuff, but I haven't really dug into it in the kind of way that I typically approach many of the subjects. And the other thing that I do is I don't read materials or watch materials that are about the person or subject that I'm talking about. I actually read their stuff. I engage with the raw material of the primary sources. And one of the reasons then why I'm so strident is because you can't tell me that something is not the case, because I've heard it from their own mouth. I know that it's the case, either from reading discussions online, or, whatever it is. So just to illustrate that today, I'm going to show a couple of the books that I've acquired over the years and research, which may or may not end up being relevant for tonight. But here's one, After the Ball, How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 90s. Yeah, so this is a strategic plan by two gay guys, basically to enmesh, to call on the media to help them change attitudes by infiltrating movies, sitcoms, and that kind of thing. And maybe you're okay with that. That's fine. But don't tell me that wasn't the plan or a plan by some people. Like, don't take that extra step and say, oh, you're just making it up. Because I don't know how to say this nicely, but I read it in their own words. I've seen it with my own eyes. And if you're telling me to deny that, well, GFY. By the way, mystery guest, if you want to throw some F-bombs around tonight, feel free. Another book that I think was really quite revealing. It really took me by surprise. I'm holding it up here. Queering Elementary Education, Advancing the Dialogue About Sexualities in Schooling. In elementary schools. And yeah, so I read this. Yeah. And yeah, again, maybe you're okay with homosexuality and gay marriage and all that other stuff. But I don't appreciate trying to create curriculum for first graders that basically attempt to co-opt a whole society. That kind of thing, frankly, pisses me off. If you have a viewpoint, just come out and say it and defend it. Don't try to foist it on people, and don't try to tell me that people are not trying to do it, because I've seen it. You just saw the book. And then just as no, I'm going to skip that one. I'll go to this one instead. This I don't think will be relevant tonight, but it kind of gives you a flavor of the kinds of things that I read. This is one of my favorite little books, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. This guy, yeah, he does feel very well versed in the climate change debate, so much so that this is a pretty sober discussion about why it's appropriate to use violence to achieve their aim. And he doesn't call for murder or anything. This one doesn't, at least. I have others that do. But this is just recent. This isn't like a 1970s book or anything. Let me just look it up real quick. This is mainstream 2021. In fact, I think I saw that there was either a documentary or a movie that they made based on this book. I did not watch it, but I think I saw that. So anyway, so don't tell me that the things that I do talk about, that I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have time in every conversation or every exchange to bring everyone up to speed with the great wealth of knowledge that I have. The conversation would go nowhere if I spent 3 hours educating people on giving everyone all my sources and stuff. So sometimes it's easy to think, well, he has no sources at all. Au contraire, my sources are them. Not people talking about them, them. So that's why I value conversations like the one we're going to have tonight. I have never worked for a Fortune 500 company, but I find it is very compelling to have the opportunity to talk with someone who has seen with his own eyes what we might call a woke ideology sort of permeate into it and create all sorts of issues and problems, many of them we're dealing with today. So I'm going to bring him in two shakes of a lamb's tail, but I haven't said my name yet. I'm such a hack. So my name is Anthony Horvath. I'm the host of the Guten Book podcast, Guten Book from the Guten Book Press. I'm a publisher and author and the owner of the online book retail site, GutenBookPress.com. And we have a new book coming out in about 2 months, which I'm excited about. And usually I try to associate the topic of a night with one of the books that we sell. Tonight that doesn't really work, but I think it's appropriate to. This is one that we have on the website, which I talked about in a previous podcast about propaganda, crystallizing public opinion, Edward Bernays, and the tactics that he describes are very much the kinds of tactics that I deplore. You know, the shady, behind the scenes attempt to manipulate public opinion. Because in my opinion, if you have to get people to change their views in that format, it means your views probably aren't very good. They can't stand on their own 2 feet. They have to sort of slink around, lie, cheat. They need to climb in through the window. They don't have the strength to come in through the front door. And I have a problem with any ideology that tries to come in through the window instead of the front door. So that's the setup. Like, subscribe, share. We are at 46 subscribers today. Very sad. Let's try to get that up to 46 and a half by tomorrow, if at all possible. That would be great. Whatever we can do there. In other words, we're only going to be successful if you take the time to share this with people. So tonight we have a guest. His name is Charlie for the purpose of this conversation. Charlie, you've been listening. You hear me okay? They couldn't hear you. Now let's bring you on now that I've confirmed. And all right, go ahead and say something.
Here I am.
There you are.
Hello, how are you doing?
Okay, let me just
Tony, I gotta start off and say I'm horribly offended. Right at the top of the podcast, you misgendered me, you dead named me. My pronouns are she, they, ice cream, and I demand you flagellate yourself on the altar of woke.
I have my weapon here. Yeah, I will.
I'm just joking. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, yes. Now your sound is coming through clear, but for some reason I've lost your face. Oh, you seem to be going in and out. It doesn't really matter, right? If they can't see you. So the important thing is they can hear you. We don't want them to see you. So you and I have talked a little bit already about this, and we want to make sure that you don't give anything too revealing away. So you're going to talk slowly and deliberately. You're not talking slowly because you're actually stupid like Forrest Gump. There's a reason for it. So, but why don't you give us the introduction? Like, go ahead and introduce yourself and what you want to talk about. Go ahead and take a few minutes, being careful again to not give too much away.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I have been working for many years in different corporations and in different parts of society. I've worked in a couple of businesses that are just normal businesses. But I've also worked in several large Fortune 500 companies that some of which have been somewhat normal, some of which have been, crazy, and then others have been just very, very woke, very progressive. And I've been a part of some of the things they've done, and I've seen a lot of the things they've done, and I've seen the way the ideology has shifted, or I would say disseminated throughout businesses and throughout the country over the last 25 to 30 years. And it's been interesting to watch as it became just a few ideas that some nut job believed at university that I heard when I was in college, and then became standard practice for some of the largest companies in the world, and has a massive effect on society. And it's been it's awe-inspiring in a way because the ability to be able to affect that level of change and that many people without them really realizing it has been astounding. But it's also horrifying because you see people losing their minds, and it's really hard. And you see that it's not just the politics, it's not just the social issues, it's their minds in general. You can see people just they lose their inability to think, they lose their inability to operate in a way that's outside of selfishness, and it's very sad at the same time. So, um, I'm here to talk about that today, and I'd love to hear your questions and other people's questions.
All right. Yeah, so I did make a list of questions here. I think it would be interesting to start at the beginning, as it were. You have been in quite a few large institutions. So let's go to the one that worked with data, just to give people
Okay.
a feel for. I believe that was your first, if I remember the stories correctly, the first time you really began to engage with a corporate structure that almost had disdain for its own consumers.
Yes.
So, say what you would like to say about that. To just give people an idea of the history you've had in this. You're not just some fly by night. You've been dealing with this for quite a long time.
Yes. So this was, oh man, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years, somewhere between there. And this company deals a lot with personal data. Um, you could consider it healthcare data, you could consider it financial data, you could consider it private data that most people wouldn't want to get out. And they have a lot of services for this all over the country and all over the world. So there are two stories I want to tell. One, at this place where I worked, and I'm largely in business functions. I'm not in like a retail place where I'm dealing with the public a lot. But in this large operations center, right at the center of this building, right at the center of this huge office building, they had what they called a command center to deal with social media. And they had a large screen where all the tweets would come in for this company. If you're interacting with this company and you really liked it or you really hated it, you could tweet the company and it would show up on this board, and it's just a rolling thing of tweets all day long, and you could stand there and watch it.
I'm sorry.
Now,
When you say board, are you talking about like a chalkboard, or is it something like more elaborate?
it would be like a gigantic screen, almost like a movie screen. This huge thing where you could walk down the hallway and see almost the size of a movie screen all the tweets coming.
Okay.
And the intention was for us as employees of this company to be able to walk past and see how much all of our customers love us. But of course, those of us who are cynical and those of us who are skeptical probably know what really is going to happen. People really only tweet at a company when they're struggling with them or not happy with them. I've never, in any of the companies, the ones I even have enjoyed, I've never tweeted them and go, "Great job, guys." That's not what most people do. So of course they're all negative tweets, but they're negative tweets that are very explicit about what's wrong, what happened. Like you messed over my stuff this way. You screwed me over this way, and my family is struggling because of this decision that you made. And you're looking at these people just so frustrated that the only thing they can do is tweet their frustration at a company that absolutely doesn't care. And I know they don't care because there were times where some of the bigwig executives, the people that drive the really fancy cars and have all the letters after their names, would come through and stand next to the board and just laugh at all the negative tweets that were coming in. And nothing ever happened because of it. Nothing ever changed. Nothing ever got better. It was just, oh, look at how look how stupid our customers are. And we're going to continue to take their money, and we're going to continue to take their data, and we're going to continue to do whatever we want with it because there's nothing you can do. And for me, that was instructive because it was probably the first real time in my life I realized that a lot of these companies absolutely do not care And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, because even if I went to a competitor, it would be the same thing. And that was the first story about just the way they felt about their customers and the way they felt about the people that work with them. I mean, leadership is standing there showing that we have disdain for our customers, so you should have disdain for our customers too. It's really hard to say, you know what, I'm going to care about my job. It's hard to do that when your senior executive leadership is saying, we don't care, so you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first story. Want me to do the second one, the more nefarious one?
Yeah, I think that would be a good introduction. Yeah, keep going.
All right, so there was this process that if there was a law at the time, and I don't know if it's still a law, where if you are on Social Security, the government has the right to contact these institutions, and this institution and several other institutions like it, to get all of your transactions with this company sent to the government, every single one of them. Now, I can't say what it is because I don't want to give myself away, but it could be something like your healthcare data, your personal healthcare data, or your personal financial data, all of your financial transactions. Or it could be your personal data on the cell phone that you use, everything. They can contact this company and it's sent to them. And the way that they did it was the government would send the list of Social Security numbers. The institution would take that list of Social Security numbers, get all the transactions, and send it back to the government. But they didn't just do it like that. The way they did it before I saw the process was they would take the list of Social Security numbers, send it to a company in Bangladesh. And Bangladeshi people would manually get all the information, print it out, and then mail it to the government.
Wow.
Now that's a bad thing because we're sending all these personal information to another country that isn't always known for the best protection of your information. But in a way, it's kind of good because they're mailing it. What's the chance they're going to do anything with it? But then this person I know got involved with it and automated the process to where the government just sent a file that had Social Security numbers in it and then sent a feed back to the government. So the government was able to get all the data automatically.
All right, so hold on a second. Hold on. So what you're saying is that initially the government would send our Social Security numbers to your company, and first was there a warrant?
No.
Okay. All right. So
there's no warrant.
So they would just say, here's Social Security numbers. We want everything that you've got about it. And then, so they would pull it up, and then they would send it to a foreign country.
Yes.
Digitally. And then the foreign country would print it out and mail it back to our country, to the government.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's the way it was until somebody figured out a way to cut out the foreign person, and instead it just became automatic. The Social Security numbers came in. Somebody at the company figured out a way to so it's that dumbass that we need to be angry with, right?
Yes. We are very mad at that dumbass. Very mad at that dumbass.
Okay. All right. So that's where we're at. Okay. So I understand. Yeah. Okay. So continue on. So now it's all automated. Continue.
Now here's the real kicker about it is there are no controls in place to verify that we're only sending the Social Security numbers of people who are on Social Security. And now the law says, and this is where the law becomes frustrating. The law says if you are on Social Security, anybody who is, it was either 2 or 3 degrees separate from you. So your family, your friends, anybody who they can define as 2 to 3 degrees separate from you, their information is sent as well.
Okay.
So the likelihood, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I just need you to talk just a little bit more slowly. I got that. But again, so what you're saying was that they didn't just give that information, but 3 steps removed family members just were handed right over to the government.
handed right over to the government.
Wow.
Yeah. And the worst part about that is the process that it was automated. There is no check to make sure that even those numbers that they're giving you, even if it does follow the law or doesn't, there's no check that they are 2 to 3 degrees separate. The government sends a social security number, data is sent back. There's no validation that this is a legit request. It's just send social security number, send data back. And that's it. So the government basically has a pipeline to every one of these institutions, or at least did at the time, and I have a hard time believing that is gone now. But the government has a pipeline to where we want to find information about somebody, this personal information about somebody, this personal information that you don't want shared is shared. With a very easy request, it takes about 5 minutes. And that was 15 years ago.
I find that remarkable in so many ways, because anyone who tries, like a normal person who tries to contact the government, like if I had a tax question and I tried to call the IRS to find out something, and I've done this, right? Like at least once, I think. Once was all it took for me to learn my lesson. You spend you're on hold for like 2 hours, and then they can't help you at all. Well, we can't give tax advice or whatever. Well, who the hell is going to give me tax advice if not you? You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah.
But in that context, not so the citizen gets the runaround, but if they want to get information from some company, it's just like, bam, here you go, like,
Yeah.
no problem. Wow, that's nuts. That is
Yeah.
very,
It is.
that is one of the more disturbing stories that you've told me, Charlie. I have to say, or maybe I should dead name you. Just Melissa, you're gonna be Melissa now for a little bit. So Mel, so you no longer work with that outfit, but that was I believe, if I understand it correctly, that was another Fortune 500 company, and you now work with another Fortune 500 company, and
Yes.
In my opinion, the previous story is by itself enough to get you disappeared, like, you know. So, but for your second company, you're still there, so we want to,
Yes.
and we want to keep you there. You know, your financial well-being depends on it, and as we talk, we're going to find out that you think that you have some good that you can do there as well. So, why don't you go ahead and take a few minutes to introduce that aspect in whatever way that you want. But answer this: you've been with them at least since before COVID, right?
Yes, I've been with them for about 9 years.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and introduce that part in whatever way you're comfortable.
Well, this is a company that you've heard of. This is a company that you've most likely interacted with. In fact, most of you out there have interacted with it. Those of you who haven't would be the weird ones. And the thing that drew me to it was it's been around for a while, and it's always been known for extremely high quality. And the thing that when I first started interacting with it, in the context of my career, it was easy to see how high quality everything was. It was a company that did things the right way. And I'm talking about business things the right way. You know, you go into a job and you've got 10 people on your team, and there are 3 people that are really good, and there's 2 people that are kind of okay, and everybody else is a lazy schlo. That's the way it is at a lot of places. At this place, the culture of the company was making sure that we're doing it the right way, and everybody was bought in. At least that's what it seemed like. And that was my experience the first few years. But after a few years, you could start to see the ideology of progressivism, of Marxism, of wokeness. Wokeness is a general term. I know most of us probably have the same idea, but there are people who have different opinions, and so it's that ideology that there is no truth, that there's only my feelings that matter, that kind of stuff. That starts to permeate things, and as it starts to permeate things, the quality of the company starts to go downward, and it's not something that you really notice off the bat. It's really, you have to take a step back after several years and say, wow, this has really changed. We had some experiences like that. I had, we were on a trip at one point, and I interacted with the retail version of this company in another place, and it was one of the ones that was still high quality, and it reminded me of what it was like when I first started. And I realized in that moment, this was several years in, before COVID, how much it had dropped where I was. And I hadn't noticed how much it had dropped. How the
Dropped.
quality had dropped.
Okay, go on. Quality
Just
dropped. Got it.
the way of doing business. And the way it kind of works is there's like stages of working through this. And I would say most people, even in these companies that are largely woke and largely known for being woke, most people are not the kind of insane you would expect if you're on onto what's going on, if you know how it works. You would kind of expect it to be a company full of blue-haired people screaming about being able to have sex with fire hydrants or whatever, whatever
Yeah.
thing, whatever crosses their mind that day. The kind of people who would actually identify as ice cream.
Yeah.
You would expect it to be all those people, but it's not. It's really just normal people. They're the kind of people who, they might think differently from you. They might have different opinions from you, but at the end of the day, you get along pretty well, and everybody's all right with everybody else as long as you do your job and you occasionally bring donuts to work in the morning. But then things start to change a little bit. You have, like, stage one would be, let me think. You have those HR videos that you watch. You think, okay, normally you go watch HR videos. You watch an HR video about, don't sexually harass people. And you go, okay, I can't tell Charlene she has nice tits. I get that. Thank you very much. But I don't really need you to tell me that. But I guess, but they do it just to cover their butts. But then it starts to change. Then they start to hear, like, now we're going to make sure that everybody around us has this same mentality. And of course, it seems sane. Like, of course, we don't want to sexually harass people, but then it's like, but then if somebody is transgendered, you can't ever talk about that, and you can't ever voice it if you disagree with it. It's okay if you disagree with it, but you can't voice it. And then, well, something's wrong with you if you disagree with it. And it goes in stages to where they just slowly roll it out to where this becomes the prevailing narrative. And they don't send it to you as an individual. One of the things they did in my company, and this was before COVID, was they said, if you are a senior leader, a director, an executive, your incentive will be tied to the number of marginalized people you have on your team. And by marginalized people, they mean people of color and people with non-traditional sexual morals, people who identify as fire hydrants or whatever. As long as you can have the right number of those people on your team, then you will get your bonus at the end of the year. But if you don't, then you won't. And they can say, from the company perspective, we're driving diversity and inclusion. We want to make sure we have these people here. But what they're doing is they're giving leaders the incentive to drive anybody who's not one of those people out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get my bonus, and that's a huge part of their financial compensation for the year.
So can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
So with that kind of momentum and inertia for that, I would have to imagine that. I mean, where does competency fit in there, if ever? I mean, surely they would not hire 5 marginal people who know nothing about how to do the work that you do, right?
And, you would hope, but that's what ends up happening, and it's not necessarily. It would be easy for somebody who's a critic of this particular way of talking about it to say, well, you just don't like enter demographic. You don't like black people. You don't like women. You don't like gay people. That's not the case. I think that I believe that in any profession, there are roughly the same number of competent versus percentage, not number, same percentage of competent and incompetent and moderately competent people. It's just that there are so many more of the majority demographic that if you have a job posting for, say, like an accountant, and you're going to get 50 responses for accountants, and 45 of them are men, and 5 of them are women, and the percentages break down to where you've got the same percentage of competent men and the same percentage of competent women, you're going to get, maybe 10 highly qualified accountant men and 1 highly qualified accountant women. And because so many of these companies are required to hire a certain number of women, they're going to go for the women first. And what that does is tell the women who are really, really good at what they do, they can get a ton of money doing what they want to do. And that happens. There have been many times where we have gone to hire and they've told us, you have to hire women, you have to hire black people. And the first person we see is very highly qualified, just as qualified as the white men or the white women or whatever the majority demographic is. But we'll offer them what we would normally offer, and they'll say, I want $80,000 more a year. And we just laugh because we can't afford it. There are companies who can, and they're very successful because they just have a ton of money and they can do a lot of things. But then most other companies, mine in particular, is forced to choose between the 5 highly competent white men or the 5 highly competent white women or the 5 highly competent majority demographic and the not quite so competent. And even the number 2 is making a lot of money in other places. So you gotta pay more for that. So let's say you don't hire them, then you gotta hire somebody who's okay and pay them the same amount of money you would pay somebody who's really good, and then the quality falls off. Because this is the directive being sent down from leadership. We have to hire these demographics. It's not that the demographics are not competent. They are. They're roughly the same percentages of competence. It's that you're creating a financial incentive for the people who are highly competent in those demographics to make an absolute ton of money, and then the rest of them who are not and should be having junior positions and growing to have these positions that they're not qualified for purely because of woke ideology.
So you said that at the beginning, when you first started working for this company, you thought it was pretty good. You were happy with it. You liked where it was going. Can you put your finger on when you think that started to change?
Well, when I joined the company, it was always known as being more liberal, more progressive, and you kind of deal with that. You deal with some of that, and like I said, most of the people are normal people. They might think differently than me, but we can sit down and have a conversation. And then COVID happened, and then the George Floyd thing happened. And after the George Floyd thing happened, all the protests across the country, in the midst of that, lots of companies around the world, and especially in the United States, were doing layoffs. My company was no different. They were doing layoffs. They were putting people on furlough. Everybody was concerned about their jobs. And what my company was doing was saying, hey, let's celebrate diversity all the time. It was every week. It was like, let's celebrate. At first, it was simple. It's a slow rollout. We're going to celebrate Asian American culture this week. Okay, that's fine. That's great. I've no problem learning about other people's cultures and taking time to think about that. That's fine.
Keep it.
Then we're going to celebrate.
Keep it going more slow. Don't When you get excited, you start speeding up.
Okay.
Keep it slow and steady.
Okay. All right. So let's say this week was Asian American Culture Week. Okay. Next week it's African American Culture Week. Okay. A few more weeks go by and you're celebrating the royal carpet merchants of northern Kamchatka. And then it starts to become things that are somewhat questionable. Like, well, we're going to celebrate people with, we're going to celebrate the alternate sexual models, which you would expect, but it just keeps going and going and going.
Right.
And it becomes that we want to provide a place for you to celebrate your culture and your group. It turns from that into something is wrong with you if you don't want to celebrate this. Something is wrong with you if you're not vocally saying, I 100% support this effort. And that's when it starts to switch. And it was just over and over. And people are starting to question, I'm losing my job. I don't want to lose my job. Everybody's getting laid off, so I have to say it. And that's another part of how the prevailing narrative takes over. Right now, you've got leadership saying, we have a financial incentive to get rid of people who are not part of these marginalized groups, as they're by their definition. And then we have everybody saying, the people who don't have the ability to speak up and say, I'm not going to be a part of that. You get questions if you don't say anything. And so now you've got leadership pushing it, you've got everybody in your team pushing it, and it becomes what feels like everybody believes this. And I know everybody doesn't, but it seems like everybody believes this, and there's almost this mob mentality. The people who just kind of go along with what the prevailing thoughts and ideas are. You mentioned earlier in the start, you said you're one of those people who reads the books and wants to understand what people think about things, whether they agree with you or disagree with you. And you showed books that you disagree with. Most people don't do that. Most people don't do that. And they just kind of go along, and after a while it begins to feel like, well, this is normal. This is just what normal is now. And they might, and every once in a while, look back and say, hey, we were talking about this 3 years ago, and now it's expected. They don't think about that. They just go, this is normal now. And when you have a company or an org that can control the prevailing ideology that way, they can make it seem like all those people around us are just part of the water we're all swimming in. And that's why I think narratives matter so much to the people who do woke ideology, because it's mind control. It's like my other company was trying to get your data, and now we're trying to get your minds.
Did you say narrative control? Is that what you said?
Narrative control. They're controlling the narrative of what is really going on in society and what people are supposed to think.
Okay.
And it's in the way they do business. And it's not just providing you an opportunity to provide a service for the company that can provide a service for people. We're also going to control how you think.
So it's interesting to me, like what you've described about with, how people just basically almost feel shamed into thinking that, what is happening to them is normal, and that there's something wrong with them. It sounds a lot like the old style communist struggle sessions that they used to have. Are you familiar with struggle sessions? And
I remember. In fact, we had a lot of. They started rolling out training sessions to talk about critical race theory that reminded me exactly of that.
Why don't you go ahead and obviously, I guess we're not saying that your company is, secretly infiltrated by communists, but like why it seems like such a close similarity that it's got to come from the same ideological branch somehow. I mean, what do you think?
I think it does, and you start to see. I don't know that anybody there, or there are a few people there who define themselves as communist and Marxist, but I think when after the Cold War, I think a lot of the Marxists that were here and a lot of the Marxists that are in different countries have realized we can't take this aggressive approach anymore. It has to be a soft, slow build. And that's what they've done. And so rather than say you need to believe this, it's don't believe that. So there's so much in these companies that became so successful because of capitalism are now virally anti-capitalist. I mean, everybody, not everybody, I'm even saying it, everybody at my work is anti-capitalist. They're not, but it's just so easy to believe that it seeps into your language. I see it, and even I say everybody thinks it.
So
But
I have
a lot of
another
the times,
I have
go ahead.
another follow-up question. So like it ties in very well with what you just said. Like it would seem to me that it's not like they're almost at war with their own bottom line. I mean, they're required to meet the fiduciary duty of the company. You know what I mean? Like, but it sounds to me like this behavior that you're describing is not tied at all to whether or not they think it'll help the company be profitable, which in my mind is clearly immoral. But isn't that like also illegal? Like, does that make sense?
It does. But they couch everything they say in a strategy that they seem to believe that they think is destined for success. If we bring everybody in and celebrate diversity to an insane level, then that is what everybody wants, and people will come rushing with us with their dollars in hand. And that's not been the case.
Right.
But with these companies, particularly the larger ones, their control over their industries, their impact in their industries is so large that it would take a lot of effort to get their customers to go to their competitors because they're so ingrained in the way they live their lives and what they do. It's almost like me too big to fail. They really are too big to fail until they absolutely really suck at what they do for a very long time. It's not like a small business where you make a couple small mistakes and you're done.
Yeah.
You could make decades of mistakes from some of these companies and still be in business.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Go ahead and continue, or I will find another question.
So the culmination of that for me was about maybe early 2022, late 2021. I can't remember specifically, but we had a big town hall for one of the larger orbs in the company. Thousands of people in one place, tens of thousands of people online. And one of the senior executives was doing his speech. And normally these speeches are about how awesome the company is and how great the culture is. And here are 5 keys to success and a bunch of other BS that nobody really believes. I'm slightly cynical about my company, but this time it was an impassioned speech about the work they were doing, and the mission for the company that this man said was to change society. The mission wasn't to provide the services that we provide, which are lots of them. It wasn't to do the different industries that we're in, which we're in lots of them. It was to change society. A senior leadership in front of a large portion of the people who are themselves guiding the business of the company says we are changing society along the lines of this phrases that they had that were all woke ideology.
All woke ideology. So, like,
Yeah.
so this is, I know this is maybe not a very fair question, but you're describing your Fortune 500 company. Do you
Yes.
feel that this was permeating most of the other ones as well?
I do. When you look at some of the other bigger companies out there that are some of our competitors that are in some of the other industries, I see a lot of the same messaging. It's the same ideas with different different colors and different words. And you see some of the people who have spoken out against these companies from within a company are quickly fired, and their lives are ruined, and that's what happens to them. I'm looking at that going, well, that's why you can't see me, and that's why I sound the way I sound right now.
Right. So what's one of the things? This is maybe almost like a topic for a different day, but like one of the things that troubles me about what we've just talked about is like, a lot of people are concerned about the stock market right now because of the tariffs or whatnot, but like the level of indifference to the profit, like you when you buy a stock in a company, especially a bigger one, you are expecting, you do so with the conviction that they're going to try to make a profit so that your investment in their company, pays off. It's worthwhile. But the way you're describing it with your company and possibly others, and I know, I mean, I've been watching. I mean, I resonate. I have the same experience or observations that you do. It's just you happen to work for one of them, and I wanted corroboration. But like it makes me think, well, I can't really invest in any of them because any one of them could sell me out. I mean, forget about Trump and his tariffs. These people all by themselves could screw me over. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. It is disheartening, and it's because I think there's this collectivist need to control. It's control the people around you, control the minds of the people around you. That becomes your driving motivation for everything you do.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you are no longer really capable of serving other people. And these businesses really only work well when they're serving something, when they're serving their customers, when they're meeting a need in society or meeting a big want in society. It doesn't have to be a need, but you can provide something that brings people happiness. So you could provide some financial services, or you can provide insurance, or you can provide groceries, or whatever it is. If your main motivation becomes to affect change in society or make the people that you serve think the way you want them to think, live the way you want them to live, act the way you want them to act, you're no longer serving anybody. You're just being selfish. And that's what you see a lot of in these companies is people who are selfish. And it's not just woke ideology selfishness. It's just pure selfishness. There are so many leaders in my company and so many in the previous Fortune 500 companies that are like this, that are only doing the work they're doing because it's going to get them their next promotion, or it's going to get them that big bonus, or it's going to get them their whatever it is. It's what it's going to get them. It's not going to help their teams grow. It's not going to help their individuals that they're working with grow. It's not going to meet any of the various crazy needs that pop up in any large organization. There's so much opportunity out there for somebody who's industrious to really step in, do something cool, do some fun work, and then get promoted into a position where you're really having some impact. There's all kinds of opportunity for that, but you can't do that because so many people are focused on, how is this going to help me? I'm not going to okay you to do this project or this thing until I can see how it's going to help me. And that drives down the quality, and that drives down people's motivation to try to do their work within any of these companies. And that kills profit almost as much as the products they produce that are condescending to their customers.
So what's interesting about that is, usually people like expect their companies to be selfish, right? To make money, but you're describing a different kind of selfishness, right?
Right. I would say when you listen to people like Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell, they talk about the need of companies to be selfish because that's what drives them to succeed. But I don't think that's individual selfishness. I think that's individuals working to get a profit in a way that can provide meaning to other people. I think individuals might go into making money, but I think a lot of individuals go into it because they can do something cool or they can help other people. No matter what you're doing. And I think that has been the biggest shift. And because of that, that has shifted what was the selfishness of these companies to make money to now become affect change in society a lot of times. And that's why I think you look at some of these large companies and go, why are they doing that? That's crazy. Yeah, they're doing it because they think it's going to affect change in society. And not good change. It's going to affect control and that.
Yeah, that makes you wonder what they're really talking about at like the Bilderberg conferences and stuff, because they're basically like a lot of them, whether it's coordinated or just independently, they just decide to do this. Clearly, the way that you're portraying it is they've decided that it's okay to take a loss on the financial bottom line because the social bottom line will be improved, and somehow that is worth it.
Right, and it's almost this. You jokingly talked about arrogance at the beginning. This is true arrogance. Is we know more than you. We are more intelligent than you. We are your betters. We can tell you what you should think and what you should do, and you will be happy. And you see those kind of narratives coming out from some of the people who are on the far left. You will not own anything and you will be happy. I mean, I've heard that for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's the same ideology that a lot of these people have. I am a better person than you are, so I'm going to tell you what you should do. And if you disagree with me, well, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. So, before we move too far away, there were in our other conversation before this, you indicated two catalysts or benchmarks when things changed. One was COVID, and one was George Floyd. So,
yeah,
pick one. Which, and maybe you can come back to the other one if you want. But what role do you think those events had in propelling these changes?
I think they were connected. I think it was that old tale of don't let a good tragedy go to waste. I'm sure there are people who think COVID was manufactured. There are people who think it just happened. I don't want to get into that conversation. But COVID happened and people were scared. People were scared for their health. People were scared for their finances. People were scared for a lot of reasons, and everybody was just afraid. So they were afraid to make big moves. They were afraid to do anything risky, because who knows if you're going to get laid off and then you could be on the streets, and then maybe if you get sick and die, like a lot of people thought that. And in the midst of that, George Floyd happened, and there was a wave of protests about Black Lives Matter all over the country. And that became a movement that people got behind all over the country. And when you have people who are afraid, and you have people who are concerned that they're going to lose their jobs, and concerned they're going to lose their loved ones, and concerned that they're going to lose their lives, and then they see a movement that people are moving toward, it's something that they can flock to and say, this gives me purpose right now. This makes me feel better because I'm doing something good for society by being a part of this movement to make the world a better place. And that is when those people who don't take a step back and say, wait a minute, what is really going on here? Am I being controlled? Is the ideology of the group that is running this true and good, or is it false? Is it controlling? And they just go, I'm along with something. And then they get into those places where the narrative is, this is what everybody believes. This is something that this is what society is moving to. We're following this big wave across the country that's going to take over and change everything. This is the big change we've been talking about, and they want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And that's when their minds get warped, because everybody that they are friends with now is very passionate about this, and anybody who's not is evil. So they cut out the people who might temper that level of insanity that they've accepted, and they just fall over the cliff.
Yeah. So, random question. We have not, you and I have not talked about this at all, but I know that over the last 5 years, my relationships with leftists have gone off the cliff. You know, most of the time, it's they that can't talk with me. There's very, very few that where I was like, okay, you're insane. I can't. Maybe a couple,
Yeah.
but for the most part, they're the ones that iced me. Is that something that you feel that you've observed as well?
I have observed it, and it's primarily people on the left, a few on the right, but they were already weird to begin with. So there was probably something. Those people were the kind of people I was like, I don't know about those, but a lot of people on the left that in its sudden, it was just like, we were friends for a long time, and then I wasn't voting for oh man, I wasn't voting for Hillary. Alice was like, who ran in 2060? I said, I'm not voting for Hillary. And they were like, they immediately assumed that I was voting for Trump, even though I hadn't said anything. They immediately assumed I was a racist. They immediately assumed I wanted to, grab him by the whatever. And that was celebrating that. And I'm a horrible person. And they just cut me off. And it was like, we've given up almost an entire lifetime of a friendship over your assumption about what I think, and you don't want to talk about it. That has happened a lot. And then there have been those people who you just cannot say anything to them without them turning it into a political conversation.
Yeah.
And I see it now. There are some people I'm friends with on Facebook who, since probably September, are posting 100, 200 Facebook posts a day that are all, I hate Trump, Trump is evil, and it's like, okay, you can hate Trump, that's fine. You can think whatever you want to think, but anybody who does that all day long for this long of a time there's a level of mental unwellness there, I think. And I think that has developed into a lot of people, particularly those people on the left. Even some family members who've cut me off for, I don't even talk about politics about my family, but about politics with my family. And I've had several family members cut me off for similar reasons.
Okay, so why don't you translate that now back into your experience working for this corporation? I know that from our previous conversations that one of the fallouts of this whole trend is that you're basically afraid to it's almost like you're worried that there are actual informers around you, which seems very unhealthy to me and not very American.
Yeah, and this is, so the team that I was on through COVID and maybe like a year after was a really good team. My boss and I think a lot alike. My boss then and I think a lot alike. And a lot of people on our team, we had a difference of opinion on a lot of things, but we could sit and talk about it. It was what you would want it to be. I love talking to people who think differently from me and talking through issues and understanding their perspective. And then when we're all done, we can go out and have a beer and still be friends. That's where I love that. And we had that with that team. And it seemed like we had that with that team. There was one guy on our team he's a gay guy. Well, he was a good guy. And, and not that you can't be good and gay at the same time, but, it wasn't like it was, hi, my name is gay, whatever, like,
Right.
hi, my name's gay Bob. Like, it was just, that was his life. And I would talk about my family and he would talk about his family and then we would do work and we would go out to dinner as a team on occasional lunch and it was fine. And we would have conversations about politics and we'd have conversations about social issues and we would get together as friends. We were friends. I'm still friends with most of those people. But then, happens in most companies, the team split apart. People got different jobs, and we maintained contact with each other. We got together not too long ago, with the exception of Gay Bob, and we didn't call him Gay Bob, but I'm gonna call him Gay Bob now.
Okay.
And he he stopped contacting everybody. He just, since the team is gone, he would not respond to text messages. He wouldn't respond to emails. Wouldn't respond to messages on internal communication. Just like, hey, how's life going? Nothing at all. And I don't see him because I'm not in the same area. But my former boss is in the same org with him, and he ignores it. How they ignores my former boss, and part of me wonders, was he just pretending to get along with everybody? And then now that he's on another team, he's part of a lot of the special demographic groups that they have for, you have like gay people at this company and this culture of this company, and there's a group for everybody, and he's very, very involved in that now than he was with us, and he doesn't talk with us anymore. And you wonder, is he telling everybody, like, these guys over here, they're the bad guys? And you just wonder. And so anytime anytime an issue comes up, I have to know that I can trust somebody, and it's a high bar to cross for me to be able to say anything like what I'm saying now.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add this part so you don't have to strain to conceal things, but like there's a reason for this reticence. Like you actually were reported once to a supervisor who was offended by something that you had produced and confronted you and said that you actually like needed counseling. So like but do you know who reported you?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
And
so
that's the skip part.
right, that's kind of like yeah. So you have good reason to think about this sort of informer society at this Fortune 500 company. That just seems like so bizarre
Yeah,
to me. Like in a like Fortune 500 company in China, yeah, but
yeah,
in
yeah,
America,
very much so.
that's just crazy.
Yeah, it wasn't even like it was a work related thing and there were questions about its validity at work or appropriateness for work. It was, I had done this creative thing on the side and I shared it with some of the people that I work with. There wasn't even political or anything, any of the issues we talked about. It was just a creative thing. But somebody took offense to it and then it got reported and then the supervisor said, not only is that not appropriate for work, which it would be at almost any other company, not only is it not appropriate, but I'm concerned for you and you should probably seek counseling. And I'm like, wow, why? I'm never sharing anything with you. Holy crap.
Right, right. So this might be we have about 19 minutes left.
Yep.
So I think a question that people are gonna wonder after hearing about this, and we haven't even shared the half of it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we could talk all night if we wanted to.
Yeah. But so, like, why are you still there? Like, do you think you could talk 20 minutes about that, or should we hold that question off and do another one first?
Let's do another one and then we'll talk about that one.
Okay. All right. Do you have something to say, or should I find a question?
You you will find a question. I've exhausted all the ideas that I'd written down to think about.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned the George Floyd connection, and how you felt that. Yeah, you mentioned that, but the only connection that you said about COVID at this point was the fact that, like, they at the same time that they were getting all into DEI, they were like, the thing that everyone was actually worried about was whether or not they were going to get fired, and all they ever talked
Right.
about was the DEI. But like, there were like some other COVID related things that disturbed you at this company, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes, yeah. So, like I mentioned, there are a lot of retail establishments for this company I work for. And so there are a lot of people who are public facing. So early on in COVID, a lot of those were closed for a while. Like a lot of places were, especially in some states and less in others. But as those started to open up again, they started rolling out these mandates that you would expect a public facing company to do during COVID. You have to wear masks. You have to have distancing. Um, whether or not you agree with it, and I don't know that I did. If I did not at the time, um, it's understandable that companies would do that. Unless they're willing to stand up for a particular thing, most companies are like, yeah, we're letting it all out.
Right.
Understandable. I would expect that. And then the the vaccine started coming out, and they encouraged everybody to go get the vaccine, which again I would understand. And then they said, if you're public facing, you can't work here. You cannot work your job unless you have the vaccine, which I didn't like, because I don't like a company telling me or telling anybody that they have to do something medically. But it's still kind of understandable if you're public facing, that a company would do that, and lots of public facing companies did that. But then the kicker for me was, they said, even if you're working remotely, if you want to work here, you have to have the vaccine. You have to go get the vaccine. That's a contingency of your employment. And some people thought I upset, but not a lot. A lot of people just said, well, okay, I gotta go get the vaccine. And I did not get the vaccine. And I didn't want to get the vaccine. And I didn't want my company to say anything about it. And this is the instance where I think I was benefited from the fact that the quality of the company has dropped so much that they were not able to actually track down the people who did not do it. So I was never forced to leave. But
Praise God for incompetence, huh?
yeah, but they're evil, but they're stupid. So yeah, it's a good thing you can't see my face. That right there would be, but you're evil and dumb.
Yeah.
Welcome to my company. Um, but But yeah, it's that kind of mentality, and that ties back into the whole controlling thing. It's we're going to control the narrative, and the narrative is you have to do what we tell you to do. I don't think the narrative is really anything specifically other than that. It's just different flavors of that. It's you have to think this way politically, not because that's the right way to us, because we want you to do what we want you to do, and you're gonna do what we tell you because we're better than you. And that's, you're gonna live this way. You're gonna think this way. You're gonna believe this way. You're gonna interact with people this way. You're not gonna speak your mind if you disagree, because we're gonna control you. And that's what that has become the prevailing message from a lot of these companies is we're gonna control you, and and then we're gonna go back to what my first company did, was we're gonna have no respect for you, and we're going to take your money, and we're going to do what we want to do, and we're going to live our lives, and it doesn't matter if it crushes yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that from this whole narrative that it would it's really hard to escape the idea that there's not some sort of a coordinated plan, because we know
This,
we Yeah, we know other companies are doing it. I guess my question for you is, and I already know the answer to it, but I want to go on the record. You just said it is, but like, do you have evidence that it's coordinated? Like, what could you give me anything or documentary
Um,
evidence?
that is coordinated by my company, or is it coordinated in general?
Coordinated in general.
I would say, yeah, I would say it's not hard evidence, but when you look at the boards of a lot of these big companies,
Yeah.
they all serve on this. They're all on each other's boards. Not everybody on everybody's board, but like that the CEOs of the big tech companies and the CEOs of the big media companies and CEOs of the big political action committees they're all on the same boards. They're all working together. It's hard to believe that it's not coordinated.
Yeah.
But I'll also share another story. Um, a friend of mine worked in the financial planning area of the company that I work in, and he was building systems to look at the way they were budgeting some of the larger efforts, and we're talking more than $1 billion a year. And when you have that much money floating around, it's easy for little things to float unnoticed. And some of the things that floated unnoticed that he noticed were that some executives that were brought into the company were given, you know, a couple $100,000 bonuses and a couple houses. And they worked there for 3 months and then they left.
Wow.
Other times there would be large amounts of money on a project that hadn't done anything for 2 years. And then somebody would look at it, and then that team would get reorged, and all the financial information would be deleted, and all of it would get moved, and the deck would get shuffled, and then another team would have to come up and look at it again. So being able to track the little pieces of money that are moving around in the company is almost impossible. Because if there is competence in this evil, it's probably in its ability to cover its tracks. And the moment you start to see smoke and you start looking for fire, everything is shuttled and it all starts over again. And that's the way it was at my old company, and that's the way it is now. When you start to see things that you go, wait a minute, why is that happening? Everything changes. And you see that. I mean, you're seeing that now with Musk and Doge, and they're going in and looking at the particulars, and everybody's doing everything they can to hide from that. It's like cockroaches trying to find the next dark space.
Yeah, right.
And I don't have hard evidence that I can share.
Okay.
But
yeah.
It's so much evidence from that it's really kind of hard to deny. And I know that sounds conspiracy theorist, but if you sat and saw it, you'd probably think the same thing.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that. Yeah. So,
I understand.
Have you ever heard the name Saul Alinsky?
Yeah, Rules for Radicals.
Yeah. So, have you read it?
I have not. I've not been able to. It's one of those things that I'd like to get to. I read a critical race theory because I was going to have to talk to them, and I was like, I want to be able to question them, and then they never let me speak. So
at the end of Rules for Radicals, pretty sure it's that one. He does have a couple, but I'm pretty sure it's at the end of that one. This is in the 60s, mind you, proposes that one of the ways to change the society is to start buying shares in these major companies and then using those shares to go into the shareholder meetings to begin to agitate. It's possible he may have even used that word. Not advocate, agitate. For the kinds of change. And he says, this is in the 60s again, mind you, how he's, it's kind of an experimental idea he has. He wonders how it would play out if anyone ever put it into practice. And I kind of feel like we're seeing how it plays out. Those are shareholders, of course, but it speaks to the board members, right? I mean, who are they going to choose for a board member? They're going to, they don't want to choose someone that's going to cause trouble. They're going to pick someone who everyone likes. That's going to be a woke person, or
Yeah.
anyway. So is now a good time to ask, so why are you still there?
Yeah, now's a good time to ask why I'm still here. So I've thought about leaving many times. I've had a couple of opportunities come my way, and they seemed like a lot of fun. A couple of opportunities working with companies who are doing good work. And as I go through the process, and we start really thinking this might be a thing. I might be working for this company where I can be surrounded by Christians. I can be surrounded by people who are trying to make good change in the world. Something happens. There was one time I had what would have been a final round interview for a well-known company, and I had something happen in the family that made me not able to have the interview. And then when I had the follow-up interview, they said, well, we had to make a decision. Well, it was somebody else. Another time, I got almost to another job, and the job fell through. And every time one of these things would happen, I would have a moment at work where somebody I worked with had let their guard down, and we were able to have a productive conversation about something they needed help with. Maybe they needed to talk to somebody to get through a divorce, or maybe they needed to have somebody on their side to help them take the next step in their career, and somebody that actually cared about them, not somebody who was trying to get something from them. Or maybe I was able to have a conversation with somebody about politics in a way that they could open their mind and think about something. Not that I ever affected them to change their vote, but like to just be able to say, this is what political conversations should be like. Mm-hmm. Every time I had one of those opportunities, that kind of stuff would happen. And every time I start to think maybe it's time to go somewhere else, this new opportunity to affect good on individuals or small groups of people in my job presents itself. And I'm always leery of people who say they feel like God has called them to a particular thing. I think it happens, but I think a lot of people say that to justify a decision they've already made. But if God is going to call people to do certain things, I think God is going to call certain people to be involved with some of these companies to say, I'm never going to steer the ship on my own. I'm sure there are people who have that capacity. I don't. But I think when you have, like I mentioned earlier, there's this mob mentality where you try and get into an echo chamber, and if you're not doing the research and you're not thinking, it's very easy to have your mind swayed. And the only way to temper that is to have people who are willing to think differently and speak differently and be open about it to the extent that they can within that organization. And while I have not yet had an opportunity to stand up and boldly say, y'all are a bunch of dumbasses, I have had opportunity to, on an individual basis, say, that is not right. And that tempers what probably could be a further level of insanity and evil than what might have otherwise happened if voices like mine are not working within the companies on an individual basis and on small group levels to keep things at least somewhat at bay. And I think that's where I am now. I don't know that I'm going to be there forever. There have been times where I thought maybe it's time to go. And my hope is that when it's time to go, I'll know it's time to go. And I'll have the opportunity to go to. And then I can stand up and call everybody a bunch of dumbasses and walk out.
Yeah, I bet you fantasize over that.
I do. I have the whole thing planned out. There's going to be music and lights and somebody playing Slash is going to be playing guitar, so that's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Okay, so do you have any final things before I wrap it up?
I would say, for those of you who are not necessarily in a woke organization, whether it's a big company or a small company, just like I think there are a lot of good people everywhere, there are a lot of bad people everywhere. And there are people in your organization who have that same mentality. And like Tony said a little bit ago, they're like a Trojan horse. whether they're investing in your company or whether they're investing money or time or efforts or skills, eventually they're going to bring in that same thing. So think about the narratives you're hearing in your companies. Think about those people who are just a little off. Don't judge them, but be wary of them. Be wise about them and think about them. And to the extent that you are able, build those relationships with people that allow you to have those productive conversations that need to happen so that you can be the voice that tempers this kind of stuff that happens in wherever you are, whether it's a company or a social organization or your church, because churches can do it too, or anywhere. Um, keep your eyes open and keep your heart open and try to do good. And when all else fails, call everybody dumbass and walk away.
Yeah. I'm writing a short story for a book, and it seems like the story that I'm writing really sort of resonates with what you're saying. And not that, well, I guess I will give something away, but like what I hear you saying is similar to what I want to convey in my story, is that if you're trying to, if your goal is to change the world, you're going to find yourself very overwhelmed and you might even give up. But we're not really called to try to change the world. We're just trying to have an impact in our little corner of the world. Would you agree with that?
I think that's a great idea. I do agree with it. Yeah.
All right, so just hold on for a minute while I wrap things up. Melanie, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Just hold on for a minute while I do the close and wrap this up, and then we'll just chat for a minute.
Cool.
All right, well, there we go, folks. We left a lot on the table that you don't even know about because we had to make an effort to not give out revealing information which could be tracked back to Stephen. We really did not want that to happen. It would have, I mean, that'd be the worst thing in the world. But like this podcast is not. I've been. If you watched this far, I don't know if you've watched any of my others or not, but like I've been very consistent in saying I don't want it to be about politics. I don't want it to be about the thing that everyone's arguing about today. I want it to be about big ideas, things that are beneath the radar that are so important. And so a lot of times I go back through time to try to find something that is really off the radar. So like last week we talked about one of the laws that Jimmy Carter passed. I mean, Jimmy Carter, I mean, that's absurd, right? But it still has an impact today, like a lot of things that we talk about. And what we talked about tonight is really, there's just so many threads that kind of tie into it. Casey brought up the fact that he, like Marxism, he actually named. So now we're going all the way back to like, the 1800s and thinking about the ideas that have an impact on people. And what I'm getting at is we tend to think that the things that happened in the past, the ideas that were common in the past or whatnot, do not continue to have an impact today. But Casey showed he's still living in it completely, right? There, like he's immersed in it. It's all around him, and it's all around the thousands, if not tens of thousands of people that are in his own company and all the other companies as well. These are not the argument of the day, the outrage of the day. They were the outrage of 2000, 100 years ago or 20 years ago. So we're going to continue talking about those things on this podcast. And if you like that approach, if you want to talk about big ideas that people don't realize are so relevant. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I hate saying that. It feels so mercenary. But you're going to have to tell people, too. You're going to have to spread the word and share it because, yeah, I could throw advertising money into this, but personally I feel like our best route for success is going to be word of mouth, and not my mouth, your mouth. So thanks for watching this far. Really appreciate it. Hope that you'll join us in future programs, and maybe a day will become when Melchizedek, who was our guest tonight, can just come out and just say his spiel, and it'll be safe. So that's it for tonight. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a great one. And we are out.